Impeachment. Is it justice or vengeance? Unity, tolerance, or cancel culture? Left and right, we got one country and we got to fix it. It's Rob Nelson Live. Hey everybody, welcome to the Friday night show. I'm here in Florida. You guys are all over Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Love your interaction. Let's heat it up tonight. But I want to go a little different route than I normally go. I'm going to dive in to what I think is happening in the country right now politically and break it down because I think there's a lot of confusion about what actually is happening. And then I want to go somewhere completely unexpected. Well, not for me. So let's start with what's happening. Impeachment is happening. It's interesting, right? I mean, I've said this before. It's like you just can't let Trump go. It's like an STD. Just sticks around. It just stays. Like, he's gone, but he ain't gone. So they impeached him in the House. And after a long back and forth, they've decided they're going to try him in the Senate in February. Okay, so a few more weeks and he'll be back mainstream, front and center. Now they're saying they won't. They're saying we'll do both. We'll do all kinds of things at once. We can multitask. We're the U.S. Senate. We can get Biden's nominees for the cabinet and key domestic policy initiatives going. It starts with getting his cabinet nominations through, and we can impeach Trump at the same time. Hold the trial. Who are they kidding? Seriously. I mean, impeachment will be all consuming. And for the media, it will. What do you think they're going to cover more? Buttigieg's nomination for transportation secretary? No, or Trump's impeachment. It's going to be all about Trump again. It's going to dominate. Why can't people let him go? I was watching Don Lemon the other night on CNN, and Don Lemon drives me nuts. Partly because he pretends to be a journalist. If he just admit he's not, it'd be fine. But he's literally, his whole thing is about Trump and how it's important that, we can't just let Trump go. Like, Trump's gone. He's gone. Thank God. He's gone. But the disease of Trump is still there. The scars, as he called it. And we have to focus on that. We have to address, we can't let that go. I'm not sure why. It's sort of like if you're a victim of something, it's like, I can't move on. I have to hold on to being a victim. But it's like, and then he kind of wraps it all up to conclude that basically all of anyone who supports Trump and is horrible. But more than that, says we have two viruses we have to deal with. One is the COVID virus, and the other is the virus of white supremacy and racism. So that's America's dominated right now by white supremacy, which is absolutely absurd if you think about it. I'm not saying there isn't white supremacy. White supremacists are like this much of the country, and they get more press. They get so much attention. They're like the size of Antifa. They get more attention. They just get more and more. America has black and white issues for sure. But if you really think the number one problem in America is white supremacy, I mean, whoa, missing the boat. Sorry. I don't care what color you are. That's not the number one problem in America, nor is it the number one virus other than COVID. The number one virus other than COVID is hate. We just got hate everywhere right now. But let's talk about impeachment just for a second. Just those of you who like the facts, let me just lay the facts out. Here's what's going to happen. Because interesting things happening in the Senate right now, okay? So everybody's going, well, Democrats control the House. Democrats control the Senate. Democrats have the White House. They can do whatever they want. Not really. There's a sort of a little hitch. It's called the filibuster. And in the Senate, basically, the Senate's tied 50-50, which means Vice President Harris becomes the tie-breaking vote on anything. So technically, if all 50 Democrats vote for something and all 50 Republicans vote against it, Vice President can come in, tie-break it, and goes the way of the Democrats. There's two problems with that. One is there's some kind of moderate mid-Democrats like Senator Manchin from West Virginia, who in order to get reelected, can't go too far left. So on really progressive issues, you're going to find a couple senators in the Democratic Party going, don't want to go there. But it gets even more complicated than that, because when you got 50-50, what happens if you deadlock in committees? The vice president doesn't come in and vote on things in committees. So they have to figure out a way to get things to move. It's the first time in decades you've had this kind of a power sharing arrangement that has to get sorted out between, the speaker, Schumer, and the majority leader on the Republican side, Mitch McConnell. So they've been battling back and forth. How are we going to share power? Okay, well, McConnell's like, I'll give you, we'll push your nominees through and we'll push things out of committee, even if they're deadlocked or whatever, in exchange for you letting me have more power than I'd normally get as the minority leader. Give me a little extra and keep the filibuster in place. Progressives don't want the filibuster in place, because the filibuster means any big major pieces of legislation, immigration reform, Green New Deal, major economic initiatives can get completely blocked, because a filibuster requires 60 votes to move past it. I won't get into all the details of it. Basically, it allows for one party to hold the proceedings up until 60 people vote to move it on. So you can't just do a 50-50. So it allows you to essentially, kick to the curb any number of things if you filibuster them. Progressives don't want the filibuster. Mitch McConnell ain't about to give up the filibuster because it's his only way to have some control. Chuck Schumer's squeezed in the middle. But Chuck Schumer wants to be able to get some kind of an agenda through. So they're going through this weird power sharing battle. And how they sort it out remains to be seen. It's unlikely the filibuster will go away. There's Democrats who want the filibuster. Filibuster protects the minority party. So for at least the next 2 years, my bet is they're going to keep the filibuster in place. So if you're a real progressive out there, you better get ready for some major disappointment. I've never felt Joe Biden was a progressive. You all know I think that he's not. And I don't think the Democratic Party feels they're going to win on a progressive agenda. I call this show Woulda Coulda Shoulda about Bernie Sanders. I'll tell you why in a minute. Woulda, coulda, shoulda is Bernie Sanders right now. Biden's not a real progressive. Biden's a moderate at best. The progressives want the filibuster gone so they can get their agenda through. Chuck Schumer probably doesn't. Mitch McConnell certainly doesn't. They're going to go back and forth. We're going to play politics for a while. So for people on the right who are panicking, they're going to throw America into socialism. No, they're not. Even if they want to, which I don't think a lot of the mainstream mid-Democrats in Congress and the Senate want to, and Joe Biden, they're not gonna, because they're gonna have a filibuster there that's gonna keep that from happening. Back to impeachment. So they're gonna deliver the articles of impeachment and impeach him starting February 8th. So we got almost 3 weeks till we're gonna actually. So it's gonna be like coming soon to a theater near you. Impeachment, the sequel. So we're going to be obsessing about impeachment for the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to be obsessing about impeachment while we impeach him. Why are we impeaching Donald Trump? I talked about this briefly last week. Why? Why are we impeaching him? What's the reason to impeach Donald Trump? Is it justice? Or is it vengeance? Sidebar Crafty. Did we share into Facebook?
Yep, we're good.
Good. Just checking. Just, thought in the back of my head. Was it impeachment for justice? Is it for vengeance or something else? Okay. Impeachment, they will say, is for justice. But we all know it's not really about that, right? I mean, you're going to go down the justice argument. That's like arguing that capital punishment. This is an interesting one, right? Because a lot of liberals are like, and I'm going to pick on both sides tonight. Don't worry. I know a lot of you think I'm a Trump apologist. I love that. Then I'm a Trump apologist who voted for Bernie. And this is going to be all about Bernie at the end of the day. So, you talk about like the purpose of impeachment. It's justice. We have to get justice. It's interesting to me around capital punishment. That was always one of the arguments people made about capital punishment. The reason to execute someone isn't because they're in prison for life. They're never coming out. It's vengeance. It's not justice. It's vengeance. Vengeance and justice are like two sides of the same coin at a certain level, right? I mean, it's justice. Well, it's justice. You killed someone, so we're going to kill you. Okay, an eye for an eye. It's that kind of justice. It's like Old Testament justice. But it's really about vengeance. It's like you don't get to live because you killed someone else. And I always thought that was a terrible way to look at it. Like, that's not going to heal anything. You don't heal anything. People always say, if you don't, as long as you hold on to something, you don't forgive someone, you're the one that keeps hurting yourself with it, not them. You don't hurt Donald Trump by not, by holding on to it. You don't. We hurt ourselves. Just stays festering in Don Lemon's world of the scars. And with capital punishment, that same argument. Like, I used to at one point thought capital punishment made sense. And then I realized I don't want to be a person who lives in a vengeance mindset. And it's not an economic thing. People say, why should we pay to keep them in prison? I mean, the cost of people on death row, like the battles, the back and forth, is more than the cost of just keeping them in prison for the rest of their lives. It's pure vengeance. So if you're talking vengeance, if that's where you want to get Donald Trump, okay, I think it's a stupid reason to do it, and it keeps this festering wound alive. If you're talking keeping him from running for office ever again, that's why Mitch McConnell wants impeachment. He doesn't want Donald Trump to ever run for office again, which, if you think about it, if you're the Democrats, you ought to let Donald Trump run for office again, because you're probably going to divide the Republican Party. He might run on his own party. He might run on the Instagram party. I just saw an Instagram post, and I was trying to read the name, Carolia Brayful. He started his Patriot Party, and then he completely split the Republican Party. He'd be like a Ross Perot in '92. I mean, if you're Democrats, you should let Trump run, please. He'll guarantee we get elected another time, because he'll divide the vote of the Republican Party between the moderates and the Trumpers. But Mitch McConnell doesn't want that. He does not want Donald Trump to ever run for office again. Problem is, he can't get 17 senators to turn. People keep saying maybe they can. There are too many senators whose base depends on them not impeaching Donald Trump. They will lose. They will lose a primary challenge, and they know it. It's pure politics, right, guys? The politicians fight. Number one thing a politician worries about is their own survival. There's this many politicians in America whose actual primary goal is the good of everybody else. Their primary goal is themselves and their career. They're career politicians. It's what they do. Sometimes they do good things. Sometimes they actually do really good things. I think I told the story before. Richard Goodwin passed away recently, husband of Doris Kearns Goodwin, the Pulitzer Prize winning biographer, wrote the biography of Lincoln. And a close aide to both Robert and JFK told me, right before Bobby Kennedy died, Bobby said to him, I realize I can make change. I don't have to just be a political tool of my dad, Joe, or like my brother was. I can actually change the world if someone doesn't kill me first, and a week later he gets assassinated. Also, I don't believe a random act, a conspiracy in my mind. So yeah, I believe in conspiracies. But so impeachment really to me is about vengeance, or a long shot bid to keep Trump from getting ever running again, which won't happen, even if he is convicted, which I don't think he will be. I think they'll argue you can't actually keep him from running again, since he was already out of office when you convicted him. And we'll see how that plays out. So the other reason is impeachment's justice. It's justice for the millions and millions of people who hate Donald Trump, and millions in the Democratic Party base, and some in the Republican base who just want to get Trump. But what does it actually get us? It just derails Biden's ability to get an agenda moving. It just keeps the focus on, okay, monkey arms, you don't want a violent mob after every election, every 4 years. Neither do I. But I hate to say it, and I'm not saying it's the same, because it isn't. But you got violent mobs in Portland right now, bashing up the Democratic Party headquarters and every federal building they can find. Antifa people saying, they hate Biden now. So we got violence, and we're going to get violence. We're creating, monkey arms, a culture of violence after everything. I'm not defending what happened. I also don't think it's fair to say it's everybody, because it was a small number of people who wanted violence, very small, of the millions and millions of people who wanted Trump. I don't think most of those millions of people, I'm sure, are not even at all supportive of that happening. But I think we're in a climate where we are pushing, as we keep dividing and dividing, toward more and more and more sense of, if I don't get it my way, I'll be violent about it. And violence isn't just physical. I'll be violent in my rhetoric. I'll be violent in my actions, my thoughts, my messaging. There's a climate of hate that we're building. And we're going to just feed the fires of that. You know, if you think Donald Trump's the devil, which some people do, you know, keeping the spotlight on him and roasting him more and more, it's like only helping spew the violence. Let it go. If you want him gone, let him go. It's probably what Joe Biden wants. But in any case, that's the politics of how it's going to happen. And that's what's going to play out over the next month and a half as we stay focused on Trump. So here's the question I want to get to. Thank you for the agreement on the Gilded Bellini. Here's what I want to kind of address here. Now, at first, it's going to sound like I'm picking on Biden, and I am just for a minute. The problem I have with Biden is I don't know what he is. And I don't have a problem with you guys being happy that Biden's president. I wish more of you who supported him would acknowledge you would have been happy with absolutely anybody other than Trump or anybody like Trump being president. So the truth is, if Mayor Pete Buttigieg had been president, you guys would be happy. If Kamala Harris had been president, you guys would be happy. If Hillary Clinton had been president, you guys would be happy. If Andrew Wang had been president, you guys would be happy. And certainly if Bernie had been president. I think the truth is, it was about anybody but Trump. And I don't have a problem with that as much as it's now time to look at what Biden's really about and what Biden's really going to do and whether Biden really can lead. I mean, I get the media, you know, laying down the thing, the unifier has come, you know, Rahm Emanuel, who I used to know Rahm years ago, former mayor of Chicago, Clinton's top aide. Rahm's a partisan. Rahm is a hardcore partisan. I mean, Rahm invited me to dinner one day, but then like 2 weeks later, I did something that pissed him off that it wasn't democratic enough. And I walked into the White House and he didn't want to let me in. And he told Secret Service to not let me in. They had to let me in because they had the little badge, but he just glared at me. It was like, you shouldn't be able to come in. I mean, Ron's hardcore partisan, but it was interesting. He made this comment that, like, you know, Roosevelt had the Great Depression. Roosevelt had, you know, we had the war, then we had the Great Depression, then Kennedy had the Cold War, and he had like a fourth one in there. And it was like, Biden has all of them. And it's true. We're facing like a civil war. Lincoln had the Civil War. We have kind of a civil war going on in the country. We've got, you know, a Cold War kind of going on with China and Russia of sorts. We have a pandemic going on, and we have a massive economic implosion from COVID. That's a lot for anyone to handle. And it's not fair to expect Biden to just suddenly turn it all around any more than it was fair to blame Trump for causing it all. And by the way, I know how it works, you know. I mean, you know, when we have the vaccine in March and April, everyone's going to say Biden got the vaccine out. It's like, okay, of course, you know, Trump would have gotten it out too. Like, Trump actually rushed that vaccine through. And he said no one else could have done it, which is probably bullshit. I mean, you know, whoever was president would have put everything into trying to get that vaccine done and get it out. And we will get it out. And, you know, and they had that whole thing where CNN, like last week, said 48 times, like they were scrapping the Trump plan because there was no plan. And then Fauci came out and said, well, actually not true. We're just building on it. But my point is, you know, Biden's got a huge task ahead of him. Is he a leader? And all I'm asking you guys is, you can want change. I want change. But, you know, putting false hope, I mean, where do you come away thinking Biden's a leader? No, I don't think BLM was inspired by Democrats wrapped in Biden flags at all. Not for a second. And I'll talk about BLM in a minute. But I do think that, you know, there's because we're so in our thing, it's like evil versus good, Trump evil, Biden good, Biden savior, Trump devil. We lose sight. It's important to be realistic. And it's important to recognize, I'm going to just say it. I don't think Biden's a leader. I see what he's done to be a leader. And when I watch him talk, even he's like, because he's an old guy who's like reading off a teleprompter and sort of looks, he used to have some passion. He just seems old and tired. He doesn't seem like a visionary leader. And right now we need a leader. So I'm not super hopeful that Biden's going to be able to unite a country that largely doesn't seem to want to be united. It doesn't seem very interested in unifying right now on either side. I've talked about this. I've begged you guys, all my viewers, to let's find unity. And both sides are I ain't going to unify with them. You go first. Not unless they will. Take a bended knee. I ain't never doing that. You guys apologize. It's oh, God, nobody wants unity. Everybody says they want unity. I don't know what Biden really wants because I don't know who Biden really is. And you're kidding yourself if you think you do. Bernie, this is why woulda, coulda, shoulda. And that picture of Bernie sitting by himself in the gloves. I think Dems are realistic, cautiously optimistic. Cruzen, I don't agree. You may be. I don't agree that most Dems are realistic. If they are, they're not saying it. And certainly don't pretend for a second anyone left of center in the media is. I mean, CNN literally practically called him God. It's like the Messiah has come from his basement. Got up out of that basement. Think about it. Biden got elected out of a basement. We joke about it, but he really did. He did almost nothing. The pandemic allowed him not to campaign. Every time the guy's in front of a mic, he says something either stupid or he gets defensive. He's almost as defensive as Trump. Not that he's anywhere near as horrible a human being as Trump, from what I can tell. But I mean, literally, you got asked about whether the vaccine rollout was big enough, and he was like, "Come on, man, give me a break," and walked away. He didn't have to show who he was. Nobody knew. He'd been a vice president. You're behind the curtain, basically, the number 2 guy on the side. Nobody knew what he was as a senator. He didn't get national attention that the average person knew about. Biden won from the basement. He didn't come out and inspire us and unify us and give us a grand vision. He got elected because he wasn't Trump from the basement, and now suddenly you'd think God has landed. So, Cruzen, you may say cautiously optimistic, but realistic. I don't see the realism. The expectations are here. The praise is here off the camera charts, and the reality's way down here. What he's actually showing, other than every time he gets up and says anything, everybody goes, "Oh my God, I melted. It was so powerful." What is so powerful about Biden? It's literally, he's boring to watch. He's not particularly inspiring. He's certainly talking off a teleprompter, and same with anyone, Trump, Obama, I don't care who. When you're reading off a teleprompter, it's words someone wrote for you, or so I want to hear you talk free form before I make a judgment about that. Monkey arms. Biden has a national plan. I'll give you that. I mean, they are laying out a national plan. Yes. And that's a good thing. He's a competent, qualified, experienced moral compass. Okay. I'm going to go there now with you, monkey arms. I was going to save this. I'll come back to Bernie. But we're going to end up on Bernie because I wish Bernie was president right now. Biden is a qualified, experienced moral compass. Monkey arms, we'll take you head to toe on this one, or head on, head to toe. Joe Biden's single biggest accomplishment as a legislator was the 1994 crime bill. Now, don't go, "Oh, that was a long time ago. He didn't mean it. He said he's sorry." It was a product of the times. If you're only responsible for the outcomes of what you do because they're a product of your times, let's stop tearing down monuments. Let's stop trying to change erase the entire history of America, because America was built on a whole lot of racism, and most of our leaders for generations, certainly way back in the day, and not even that far back, were racist at some level. And we're like, it's not okay. They were a product of their times too. Doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean it's all right that you were a product of your time, so you get a free pass. Biden passed the 94 crime bill, which is today one of the primary reasons, not the only reason, one of the primary reasons the Black community is so devastated. It's not a little reason. It's not a tiny bit. It literally is the reason a quarter of young Black Americans are in prison. Single-handedly led the drive to push a bill through that he bragged basically had a death penalty for everything but jaywalking. So you don't get to go. He has a moral compass because he did that and said, "Oh, at the time we were being tough on crime, maybe it wasn't the right." What do you mean? You literally set in motion a vehicle that for the last 30 years, until, oddly enough, Donald Trump passed the Second Chance Act, had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of black men being locked up for BS. I mean, half of Trump's pardons, like I said last week, were people in prison for life for nonviolent drug offenses. Half of them about pot. I mean, am I outraged? Yeah, because that's literally his moral compass. His moral compass was to eulogize Senator Byrd. Eulogize him. I mean, you can say what you want about what Senator Byrd became. Senator Byrd was a racist. I don't care that he wasn't. People say he wasn't the head of the Ku Klux Klan. No, he wasn't. He was like the number 4, whatever. Doesn't even matter. He was in the Ku Klux Klan. Doesn't even matter. He fought hard to prevent desegregation. He fought hard to keep Jim Crow laws in place. He fought hard to keep black people as second-class citizens. I don't care what else he did. If you want a moral compass, if you want to talk about the kind of social justice and change we need in this country, Senator Byrd was one of the most powerful forces in America for decades to keep that from happening. And Joe Biden eulogized him and called him a great man, a mentor. Moral compass? Where have you seen Joe Biden's moral compass? Anita Hill? Anita Hill? Oh, sorry, he did what he had to do because of the rules. The rules he wrote as the Judiciary Committee chair. He made Anita Hill, he still won't apologize to her. He basically made, if anyone had done that in the Kavanaugh hearings to Dr. Ford, can you imagine? I mean, literally threw Anita Hill under the bus, basically, and said it was the rules. So that's the 3 high-profile moral compasses I got, how he handled the Anita Hill hearings, being the co-sponsor of the single most destructive crime bill in the last 30 years for black people, and being a big fan of one of the country's leading segregationists, most powerful members of Congress for 25, 30 years. That's the moral compass. Everything else was as a sidebar. I'm not saying Joe Biden's a bad human being. I'm just saying, let's not put him on a pedestal he doesn't deserve. And I'm not equivalating it to Trump. Biden and Trump aren't the same. Biden's clearly a much more decent person in many respects. Although Biden's corrupt too, 45 years in there, you're all corrupt. He just doesn't have to talk about it. And sitting side by side under Obama, he got to ride the coattails. Biden was never Obama. It's why Obama didn't come out and endorse him until the end. You ever think about that? Why wasn't Biden jumping on the bandwagon right away? He was so quiet about it because he knew. And at the end, he did. I may not have been the world's biggest Obama fan, but let's be honest. Obama had charisma. Obama was a leader. Obama had a vision. You can like it or not like it. Obama went there. Obama did that. Obama represented that. Biden didn't. Yeah, that's a good point, Cruson. And I'm not picking on the press here. I get it. They're going to go crazy about it. My problem is it's not going to help because they're going to keep going crazy about Biden. They're going to keep dumping on Trump, and Trump ain't going to leave the media spotlight because they're going to keep dumping on him. We're going to have impeachment for another month and a half or two, and my problem is we're killing 20% of the country trusts the media anymore. The media was such a powerful, important voice to keep truth and clarity out there. Democracy dies in darkness. The Washington Post, they've lost all credibility. They're not helping themselves by literally treating Biden like he's God instead of being like, thank God we got rid of the crackpot. Now we're holding you to the fire. They're not holding him to the fire. And if they try, they get shot back right away. So that's all I'm saying with that. Yes, he did the Violence Against Women Act. So, Cruson, your response to my pointing out 3 horrific acts, things, it gets weighed off by he did the Violence Against Women Act. I didn't say Biden's never done anything good, but what he led most on, what his biggest impacts were. The crime bill is the single biggest, most that maybe, and when they did, welfare reform in 93, when Clinton did welfare reform, that and the crime bill did more to decimate Black America than anything else. And we're still paying for it. All of us Black America's paying for it. Every impoverished community is paying for it. And white people are paying for it too. We all pay for that. My point is, that's his biggest legacy. And that's a lasting legacy. It's literally only got a teeny piece of it undone under the Second Chances Act, which, again, I think it's ironic. I don't think it was Trump, by the way. It's Ivanka. Ivanka cared about that. She pushed those pardons through. She pushed the Second Chance Act through. Monkey Arms, he didn't do it unilaterally, but he was one of the two main people that drove the bill. So yes, lots of other people voted for it too. Again, I'm not saying you can't make mistakes, but we don't want to own them unless it's a side we don't like. I mean, you can keep trying to dismiss the crime bill. It's the reason why 25% of young black Americans are in prison. I'm not saying no one who's black commits crimes and should go to prison, but we decimated the inner cities. We didn't give them an economic base to grow on. We built a horrible system to keep them under forever. Then we created double standards around sentencing. We policed them hard, and we ended up helping decimate the family and black men in communities. And a lot of black activists will tell you they think it was intentional to decimate the black community. They actually wanted to. I don't know if that's true. Biden, Monkey Arms, it's not about whether Biden doubles down on it. That's my point. Flip it the other way. If someone had passed a bill that you found offensive who was a conservative, and it had massive damage, did horrible damage, and later on they said it wasn't a good thing, would you be like, oh, since they're not doubling down on it now, he's not going to double down on it now 30 years later when he's running as a Democrat and the most progressive agenda ever is being pushed on him, and only can get elected with the help of a progressive left? He's never going to double down on it, but he never undoubled down on it till he was hammered on it. And by the way, in the debates, he got hammered on it. Kamala Harris, the stuff he got hammered on the debates, everybody forgot. And he did kind of double down. He basically said, we were facing a massive crime wave and we needed to do something about it. He's never come out. And Biden never comes out and acknowledges he really effed up. He won't apologize to Anita Hill. He never, he's never taken back his supporting Byrd, and he's never come out fully and said, I was absolutely wrong. I should spend the rest of my time in office trying to undo the damage I did. That would be something special to see that. I'm not a bit of a mess about Biden, Cruisin'. Not at all. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Jimmy Sack. I don't think either side is gonna do that. And Monkey Arms, you're gonna be surprised by that. I don't think that's gonna happen, and I'll tell you why. It's not Biden's fault. We are so divided. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for that. Talk to me. You're saying I'm a mess. Why, Cruisin'? Why? Because you're all about facts, especially people on the left. Facts first, facts first, facts first. So I lead with facts and you're like, I'm a mess. I've actually simply laid out facts. I didn't make anything up. I added my interpretation of those, of the implication of those facts, but the facts speak for themselves. You can see what the crime bill did. You can see the statistics. You can talk to any black activist, any prison reform activist. The crime bill not only created that massive move of incarceration, it created a double standard in our justice system for blacks and whites, and it literally single-handedly fueled the rise of the for-profit prison model. So those are facts. The facts of Biden supporting and eulogizing Byrd, that's a fact. The fact of Biden's position on segregation, which Kamala Harris called him out, that's a fact. What he did with Anita Hill, fact. That he said it wasn't his fault, those were the rules, that's a fact, and is a fact that he set those rules as the Judiciary Chairman. All of those are facts. You don't like my facts. You can draw whatever conclusions you want from those facts, but those are the facts. They're nothing else but facts. And I haven't seen enough of Biden in any other light, nor of any of you, to suggest that somehow he's all the things so many people are saying he is. Because you haven't seen him, because how many times have you seen Biden go one-on-one in anything? He's only done controlled settings. He's only done scripted stuff. He's only done soft press interviews, and he avoided the press as much as possible during the election. So where do you get the sense that you've seen Biden publicly in action other than as a vice president? And you can't tell me you saw what he was doing as vice president, because vice presidents largely are behind the scenes. I mean, Pence was a little more in front than most. Biden really wasn't. Al Gore was. Obama kind of kept Biden a little sidelined. That's not true, actually, Monkey Arms. In fact, again, you want to do your facts, go look at media coverage. Go watch CNN's media coverage. It's someone, they literally talked about, like, I don't think the comparison was Moses. It wasn't Moses coming down. The psalmist. It was the psalmist. The psalmist talking about kind of coming to save us. The psalmist, David in the Bible. And I disagree. Nancy Pelosi's and many people have said they want vengeance. And I know you say no one's talking about Trump. I mean, turn on CNN. It's like, Don Lemon can't stop talking about him. I mean, and Nancy Pelosi's made very clear that Trump needs to be punished. We don't just move on. She won't say, I don't want him to ever run for office again. McConnell probably would say that. She says, we don't just move on. He needs to be punished. Doesn't matter that he's out of office. He needs to be punished. We didn't do it the first time, and look what he did. He needs to be punished. That's vengeance. It's punishment. It's vengeance. It's that simple. I switched to Bernie here for a second. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of double standards in the coverage. And again, I get it. My point is this. You got such a divide right now. And I'm going to get to why that matters. Bernie, I wouldn't be saying any of this if Bernie were president. And a lot of my friends on the right would be like, how could you want Bernie to be president? But again, I'm not a conservative. I'm a true independent. And a lot of the things I want wouldn't make conservatives happy. I'm for expanding the electorate. I don't want it expanded in a way where people can vote carelessly and fraudulently and change their names on ballots. But I'm all for. When I was running Lead or Leave in the 90s, I tried to push a massive voter expansion initiative that would have gotten students to be able to vote on campuses. I think we should be able to vote I think people should be able to vote from their computers in an open source coded voting system that people can see the coding so you can't mess with it. That's not going to happen for a while, although theoretically it could. I'm for direct election. One person, one vote. I don't care. We can have a national holiday. I want people to vote. I'm not afraid that if you let everybody vote, they'll all vote for the other guy. It'll just make it a competition where you got to have the best ideas and you got to win the most people. That's what I want. I want immigration reform. I want a path to citizenship for the illegal immigrants living in this country. It's absurd to have millions of people living in your country, working, paying taxes, running businesses, interacting through most of our lives, and to not let them have a path to citizenship. I also want strong borders so you don't keep letting more people come in because people keep wanting to come in. I also want priorities fixed. I don't think the right priority is that when we have our own cities crumbling and broken. So when I look at Biden's immigration plan, well, I'm supportive of it. And, his press secretary, makes a big point out of how they're funneling, enormous sums of money into Central America, theoretically, to stop what's causing it, as if that's going to be enough to fix those economies. I'd be like, why don't you funnel those vast sums of money into our impoverished communities in America? Why don't you funnel that into every impoverished city in America and help rebuild those communities first? But not first before you give people a path to citizenship. I'm saying first before you go give money to the other countries to do it. Is that America first? Not really. I guess you could call it that. It's putting the people in my country first. It's putting the people in the communities I interact with and see every day first. Why I like Bernie is Bernie had a vision, was a leader and an independent from day one. He's never changed on that. His vision has been solid. Well, you do find my opinion unsupported, Cruson. Go spend some time in Black communities. I spend a lot of time in Black communities. Black communities, young Black America didn't get Biden elected. Older Black Americans got Biden elected. And yes, they voted on party lines. And that will change. Young Black Americans are going to vote very differently than their parents. I get frustrated and a little tired of people sort of, I spend more time in cities and communities of color than most white people. I just did a town hall in Jacksonville across a massively racially conflicted city. And I had, kids from every school across this city, and 60-70% of them are black, and almost all of them are liberal. And this many of them like Trump. And it's funny because given that I'm such a to so many of you, you think I'm so offbeat and wrong and conservative or whatever. I'm surprised they let me do it. I'm surprised they let me host it. I'm surprised they had the engagement they had with me. They must think because I'm a horrible white racist. No. And they didn't think that for a second because they're able to have the dialogue because what they care about isn't Trump or Biden. What they see is their communities are broken. They didn't see Trump fixing their communities, and they don't see Biden fixing their communities, and they don't see their Democratic mayors fixing their cities. Neither party's focused on fixing the real problems that affect every single American. They're focused on their agendas and their platforms and their bases, and every one of you is stuck in this left-right divide, this Trump versus anti-Trump. I'm not knocking Biden other than the fact that I'm knocking him enough to say, let's not put him on a pedestal. I want him to succeed. I'd love Biden to come out tomorrow and deliver a vision of change that fixes this country. Monkey Arm said he's got a national plan. Okay, let's see what they do. Again, the vaccine, the rollout, good. And it was happening anyway, but needs to happen faster and needs to be a better plan. Great. Let's do it. Let's see that happen. What are you going to do to rebuild businesses in this country? What are you going to do to stop the horrible cycle of violence that's going on in this country? He won't even condemn the violence that's happening in Portland, but that violence is happening not Antifa, but violence in every major American city every week. We've got such a mess. We've got such broken communities. I want to show you guys a clip. This is a clip from, because you know what it comes to for me? This is what I'm worked up, but the reason is because I don't actually care about Biden or Trump. What I care about is fixing the brokenness in this country. And I don't think the divide, the hate is doing any of that. All the adults are yelling at each other, feeling good about canceling each other, stabbing each other down, deprogram them, silence them, stop them. You're wrong. You're a hypocrite. You're this. Meanwhile, the next generation's getting completely effed. They are falling through the cracks. They've had to deal with more than we ever had to deal with. They don't have to deal, so many of them, with poverty in impoverished communities, but also now with what we did because of COVID and the isolation, what happened to them in terms of being their education and their social structures. You got a nation of kids who are scared. This is a short clip from just chunked together our little bits and pieces. By the way, in this town hall, politics didn't come up once, except for budgeting politics locally. Listen to what these kids are feeling.
Do you worry about your mental health?
All the time.
Like that you're depressed or that you're...
Yeah.
So hands up, how many of you will acknowledge that you worry about your mental health? Anxiety, depression, fear?
I don't talk to my parents about a lot of issues because they just don't understand. And they'll just say, basically you have nothing to be depressed about.
The state of isolation obviously was brought about by our online schooling, which was necessitated by COVID-19. But this brought about these feelings of these weighing anxieties, and this isolation really can cause people to stir and then not have as many people available with which to discuss these mental problems.
Do most of you relate to that? Hands up, because we don't see nods. Yes, most of you relate to feeling that.
So I'm Black, so I can only speak from the Black experience. We experience trauma differently. Mm-hmm. I see people who look like me getting arrested, shot and killed, and doing drugs. That's the representation that I've grown up with. So how can I see better for myself? We've lost a lot of our classmates to gun violence. So we see that. And for instance, St. Clair Evans was a school where a bullet went through a elementary school window. They said they received therapy for 1 day, and that's unacceptable. And that's just crazy to me.
So we can't speak about our problems. We got to keep it inside. That's toxic to us. But, this is how we've been growing up. As a parents, we weren't supposed to say anything. My dad, I'm not trying to throw my dad out there, but no, I'm not supposed to, talk about what's bothering me. Just keep it inside. Don't worry about it. Like, you'll get over it soon.
What is it for you? Is it depression? Is it anxiety? Is it fear of the future? What's the thing that you find it hard to sort of admit, but you're going to just admit anyway?
I'm going to say maybe fear of the future, because I don't know what's going on anymore. Like, I don't know what where we're going in the society, and I just fear of that just haunts me. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to say.
Can you guys relate to that?
As the school's falling apart, we don't have enough security, the school's overcrowded. That's not just Lee, there's a whole bunch of schools on the docket.
Right.
You have areas where students cannot have new textbooks every year, like the textbooks are beat up. It really is about the have and the have not.
2020 was catastrophic on all accounts. And if anything, there was a surplus amount of information, a surplus amount of things that we saw in the media, kind of messing up everybody's priorities in a way.
So, yeah, it's just a little sampling of it, and some of you were watching it. So I guess here's my point, guys. They're who I care about. You know, you listen to what they're talking about, and this is a fault on both sides. This is why the left-right thing's killing us. These kids, so many of them, are coming in communities that have broken schools, horrible infrastructure, inadequate funding in their poor hospitals, busted up economic infrastructures in terms of job and job creation, massive amounts of gun violence. What are we doing about that? What are we collectively doing about that? Because that should be like priority number one. COVID, then that, because that's the future. And both sides share responsibility. You know, I mean, you know, some of these kids talked about the messed up school system. You know, people on the left, you know, support unions. That's great. Unions are great. But the school unions have become bloated bureaucracies that block progressive change. School choice. People on the left love to hate school choice. I don't know why. Like you know, we like use FedEx over the post office. We hate school choice. But I've worked in schools, inner city schools in LA, public schools that use choice as a model. Their graduation rates, you know, LA's got like a 60% graduation rate. These choice schools, which were not for super kids, they were for kids who'd been in the worst schools. These focused project-based learning, different kinds of education approaches led to 90+% graduation rates. Being stuck in a thing like we can't like that because it's not in our political thing. And on the right, if I hear any more people, and I'm not saying all conservatives, nor am I saying all liberals think that, but, you know, the notion that like, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You just got to give everybody a, you know, we give everybody a even playing field. It's fine. No, it's not. Not when you already like broke them down that far. And they don't even have an even playing field. But no, you actually have to do more. You subsidize business. We subsidize corporations all the time. We need to subsidize these communities. Banks don't want to make investments. They're high-risk environments. The government has to make it so they will. You have to pour infuse resources in. And I'm not talking about just handouts. Yes, you have to make them targeted, but they need help. You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you don't have any bootstraps. And that's a myth of the total free market notion. Betsy DeVos, you see, monkey arms, why you got to go back to putting it in the left and right box? Betsy DeVos was for school choice. You know, I'm for school choice. I've worked with some incredibly innovative liberal educators who are all for school choice. Choice is a good thing. Even charter schools. And people go, charter schools are horrible. As if our public schools in our big cities are great. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, even Jacksonville. You know, the public school systems in most major cities suck. You couldn't do worse if you tried. But it's not about Betsy DeVos. You're missing my point. It's about going in and looking. These kids, you hear what they're saying? Even the co-organizer, Mediana, at the end saying, basically, you guys, 2020 was a mess, and the media went crazy and all stuff, and it just distracted from the real priorities. You know, someone talked about BLM. You know how many people I talked to in the inner city communities were part of BLM? Like 2%. The activists were. They weren't, because they were focused on, and I'm not saying they weren't supportive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying every one of these kids, white and black for the most part, would talk about systemic racial injustice. We have to deal with that. But we're not dealing with systemic racial injustice when we're just out busy canceling. And go back to my point. They're the future. And these kids are literally saying, we're scared. We're afraid for our future. We're mentally underwater. We don't have the resources to move forward. And they don't. What are we doing to help them when we sit here in our little battle between left and right, Democrat and Republican? You're going to make us all socialists. You're all needing deprogramming. Like, seriously. It's like the adults in the room need to grow up. All of us. Because, and they're just the tip of the iceberg. because of COVID, we got all kinds of people who were middle class who got screwed. Tons and tons of people who are out of work, whose careers have been shattered, whose businesses have been collapsed, whose retirements have been wiped out. They need help. And yeah, it's nice that Biden signs the 1.9 deal. They signed a $3 trillion one before. That's not what it's all about. It's not literally just about writing checks. That matters. It's going to take real, serious innovation. It's going to take serious leadership and all of us coming together. And we can't do that. We just can't, you guys, if we're fixated on pinpointing why the other side is wrong. I'm not taking a side here. I'm not defending Trump. And I'm not trying to attack Biden. And you'd say, well, you did attack Biden. I merely pointed out that this is what Biden's record is. So if you want to point out someone's record, you want to point out what they did, point out what they did. He gets a chance now to do better. That's great. Cruzen said he's going to cautiously optimistic. I want him to do better. But he would actually do better if he was held to the fire for the things he actually did that were wrong instead of getting a free pass on him. But I'm also not willing to overlook that any more than you guys aren't going to overlook what Trump did. And I'm not going to overlook what Trump did. I said Trump inciting and his people, whether he caused the riots or not, he spent 2 months insisting that it was a completely fraudulent election when it wasn't. Insisting that the whole thing had been stolen when it wasn't. And he wound millions of people into thinking that you don't get a pass for that. But Biden doesn't get a pass for the crime bill because that had lasting implications to this day. Are we going to collectively fix it? Are we going to undo it? I didn't see Monkey Arm's comment about schools. I'm sorry. Monkey Arms, you're killing me, my friend. Monkey Arms, my challenge to you tonight is for you to try for 1 week when you come back on my show to try to be nonpartisan about it. So I'm going to take you on. Which party might align with those issues? To be honest, let me see. In Jacksonville, that black representative councilman you saw, there's a Republican. He's leading the charge on these issues, leading the charge more than the Democrats in the city. Gun violence in schools. Don't see a lot of effort being done, given that most big cities have Democratic mayors. I don't see it. Chicago, Rahm Emanuel didn't do crap around gun violence in schools. And if you think gun violence in schools means just keeping guns out of school, if you talk to kids, it's not a black and white issue, no pun intended for them. It's not as simple as just guns or no guns. They get it. They're smarter than us about it. So I don't think, mental health, education, you say Democrats are leading in education, then Democrats should literally put a boot on big city, school district unions, because those unions are destroying those school districts. And if you talk to a lot of teachers off the record, they'll tell you that. I talk to principals in LA all the time. They're liberal, but they see the damage the unions do, the corruption the unions create. So to make this a partisan issue is not the point. And I'm not saying that Republicans are all right about it. It's not a party issue. Neither party has stood up and met these challenges. Democrat-led cities have failed over and over and over again, these big cities around these issues. So they don't get to take the high road. And I haven't seen Republican legislatures come in and lead in a way that's been innovative and created massive amounts of innovation, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take innovation. It's going to take tech innovation, economic innovation, public-private partnerships like we've never seen before. Nobody gets to say they've done this, because the proof is that it hasn't been done. And that's why these kids are scared and begging for us to listen. Put your partisan hats down. You want unity? You can hate the other side. Let's unify about rebuilding the communities, the next generation's future, laying them an honest path, and rebuilding and unifying and healing the most broken communities in our country, and finding really powerful and effective and innovative ways to come together and give the next generation a foothold. And that starts with the most broken communities. And then it moves to the massive middle that got bashed by COVID. Let's start there. Can we do that? They will, if you have kids, don't have kids, the next generation will literally thank you for it. Go ask a kid. And if you haven't, go spend some time in an inner city. Every single one of you, go spend some time in an inner city. Ask the hard questions. Have the conversations. You'll be shocked by what you see. I'm only asking you to do what I'm already doing. I really do want to see us fix this country. And I really do want to see us unified. And I don't mean it in a kumbaya way. I want to see us unified enough to actually solve problems. We don't have to agree. We don't have to all get along. We have to get along. We don't have to agree. You have to put your, take a bended knee or throw your politics and your principles and your philosophies out. But we got to come together. We got to come together for the greater good. That's what unity is. You all get to decide where that starts. Each one of us makes that decision as of now. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.